So all that out of the way, what are the docs that this kind of brings to mind, or that you think are good companions to this piece?
So the reason we decided to do this movie was because the last one we did, Children of Men, was kind of about similar subject in a way. It was about population and birth and whether or not there are too many people.
There's only one child I think you see in this movie, and it's the child is on a leash, strapped to his dead mother, lying at the curb, and Charlton Heston, his character, unstraps the kid from its mom, drags it into the church to give it to the priest. It's the only kid I remember seeing in the movie.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, dude, that's another good scene. You just see this dead lady lying there and you're like, what the hell? And he traces the leash off of her hand, and then there's just this kid crying, "Mama, mama." Damn, that's heavy. And he just completely unfazed grabs him, takes him in like it's a matter of course. He's probably done it before. But the documents and stuff, the historical artifacts that come to mind are really pretty much the same ones as last time. The theory that human population is unsustainable goes back to Thomas Malthus, as we talked about last time. And, that theory is basically that if the human population continues to grow as it does, we won't be able to keep up resource production in order to feed everybody. So what you'll get is just this ever increasing, ever expanding poor population, which is going to lead to desperate people doing desperate things, and all of society is going to collapse because that's what happens. And this movie is a Malthusian scenario. Society has collapsed because there are too many people, and so now we're seeing that. What do you get? You get desperate people in the streets starving and smashing windows, and you get a very loosely held together, kind of held together with duct tape and bubble gum, but very authoritarian government that remains as well. Kind of like in Children of Men. The government was by no means this combine of competence, but it was draconian nonetheless. It's kind of like a second world dictatorship. And that's the impression of this government in this movie.
What's really interesting with the whole Malthus concept is that, and Elon Musk would be someone who will agree with us, is that the real issue that we have as people is our economic system, and the fact that what really happens is that at a certain point of wealth, human beings stop procreating. Because we have enough leisure time that we don't have to, or because death isn't such an imminent threat to us, we don't need to have 10 kids to, take over our family plot and keep us alive in the future. Ultimately, what history has taught us is that we have a difficulty of replacing ourselves in first world nations. The only nations that create more population are nations that people struggle to live in the first place, because having 4 kids is the only way to guarantee that you have a next generation. Whereas, you and me, we've each got 1 kid. we don't even have replacement population.
Yeah. People will people wait in our culture. Even if they do want to have kids, they're like, well, I'm going to wait till I'm 34 because I really want to enjoy my 20s and I want to focus on my career and blah 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 blah. That's nice. There are places in this world where people are cranking out babies at 15, and that's kind of the only option. We don't have to do that. So you're right. In affluent cultures, we tend to put off having children. And then the longer you wait, the less likely you are to succeed and the less likely you are to have an abundance of children, etc. Then, of course, there's the whole environmental factor where our testosterone levels have been plummeting. Fertility is under chemical assault, basically, by everything we consume. So there's that whole conversation as well. So right, we're dealing with a depopulation problem, not an overpopulation problem. And I think the overpopulation problem, as it's framed by Malthus and as it's framed in this movie, kind of necessitates, I think, the the corporation's argument for making Soylent Green out of people. You know, when you consider the Malthusian narrative, and when you consider the idea that if you accept that overpopulation is a thing, it makes you wonder when watching this movie, according to that narrative, is the Soylent Corporation the good guy? Because they're the only ones who have apparently come up with a sustainable solution to overpopulation. It's human composting, it's recycling, it's sustainable, right? So when you think about how today you hear about, people eating the bugs and human composting in California and all of this stuff, and you think, well, geez, that's kind of sinister. A lot of these environmental measures are indeed put forward because it's said that they will help the environment. Why should we bury human dead? Why should we put the corpse away and keep it out of the recycling process? If there are too many of us, our only option is to integrate human compost into the food supply, right? From an environmental point of view, if you accept certain Malthusian premises, it actually kind of makes sense. So if you're a Malthusian and you watch this movie, you might be on the side of Soylent, right?